Get your win at WallaceWins.com.
All right, welcome everybody. We have in studio dear friend of mine, esteemed colleague, Michael Alder, owner and senior trial attorney at Alder Law, a leading Los Angeles firm that represents plaintiffs in personal injury, business torts, and employment litigation cases. As one of the top trial attorneys in California, previously winning the prestigious Clay Award, being named California Attorney of the Year, as well as winning the Consumer Attorneys of Los Angeles Trial Lawyer of the Year award. Mr. Alder vigorously pursues cases on behalf of his clients who've suffered injustices. And I will also say it's an honor to have you here, Mike, because you and I have been colleagues and friends for going on almost 20 years.
Yep.
And it's a real pleasure to have you in studio. So welcome.
Thank you. Did you get all that off the top of your head, or did
I did. I did a little Google search of your website, and as you know, I got to do a little research. Got to be prepared. But great to have you here. We're going to get into some good questions, hopefully, and get your insight on some stuff. But before we do that, in true WallaceWins.com podcast fashion, we're going to start off with rapid fire.
You didn't even give me a heads up on this.
Are you ready? All right, I'm going to name some stuff off and just rapid fire whatever comes to mind. You ready?
As ready as I'm going to be.
All right, here we go. Coolest place you've ever been?
Oh, shit. Paris.
Best sport to watch?
Hockey. Live.
Movie you've seen more than any other?
Sound of Music.
Favorite time of day?
Ooh, 4 a.m.
I'm going to have to ask you about that. First band you saw live?
Van Halen.
Best city you've ever lived in?
Ooh, Los Angeles.
All right. Best compliment you've ever received?
I'm funny.
All right. Biggest pet peeve?
People showing up late.
Most famous person you've ever met?
Stedman Graham.
Favorite sports team?
Dodgers.
What are you listening to right now?
Audible book. The War of Art.
Window or aisle seat?
Aisle seat.
No hesitation.
None.
And that has been rapid fire. Very nicely done.
You should have given me a heads up for this.
It's the,
I guess it would not have been
the
rapid
icebreaker.
fire.
We got to get warmed up.
Jeez.
But there's some interesting information we gleaned from that little exercise. I wanted to get into obviously the meat and potatoes of having you here. It's a pleasure. You know, you're someone for me that's been a mentor, someone that I've looked up to and reached out to many times over the years.
I remember.
Collaborated on cases. And I remember when I was a baby lawyer.
Jerry's office.
Yeah, with Jerry Marcus's office. I used to drive down to Stanley Mosque and watch you in trial and just try to soak up as much information. So it's been many, many years that we've had a relationship. I've seen you from the outside looking in, have, a lot of success and build your practice and your professional brand over the years, which has been really amazing to see. For me, what I'd like to have you provide some insight on is, for someone who's been at the top of the game for a long time, can you talk about what the focus of your trial practice is currently right now?
The focus of my trial practice, candidly, to get better. I've been spending a lot of time focus grouping today and realizing that there's a whole world out there that's always constantly evolving and changing, and the way you may have done it well, relatively, at one point does not necessarily mean the same thing. The jury pool's changing, the demographics, the boomers are moving out and the gens are coming in, and the way they've learned, what they've listened to, how they've learned changes. And so there's certain basics, obviously. There's certain ability to breathe under stress, which is, heartbeat control. But in terms of techniques and big data and that kind of stuff, it's a constantly evolving thing that requires, in my opinion, us to do a good job for our clients.
Absolutely. So you mentioned today you were focus grouping one of your cases. What are some of the other things that you're doing currently to try to evolve your trial skills and to stay ahead of the curve and, continue to develop as the landscape is changing around us?
Well, a couple things that come right to mind. I learned about road mapping with Mark Lanier, which was great. And I'm a big believer in practice. And so was he, actually. And he made a recommendation that I certainly have followed, that I don't know, luckily a lot of people hear a good idea and then don't do anything about it. But he's like, practice your road mapping. Practice it, with your spouse. Your kid wants to go, let's map out what we're going to do today. And so I have all the items to do that, the pens and the this and the, I don't even, if you know exactly what I'm talking about.
That was going to be my follow-up. Talk me through it.
It was very interesting. He uses an Elmo type projector, and as he explains something, as he cross-examines, as he direct exams, he will write out a roadmap telling, okay, here's where we are, here's what we're going to accomplish, where we're going to end up. And he'll actually draw a map, a road. And as you go through, he'll add points, or if it's in a cross-examination. So you're the defense doctor who's going to talk about why the client's not injured. Well, let's talk about, how you got there. But as he's doing it and it's being written and the jury's paying attention, it's drama. If you write down the cross-examine point, you didn't have all the MRIs, but then they say, yeah. And then you go, okay, doesn't have all the MRIs. So you would agree that your roadmap to get where you are is only as good as, but now you've written it down. That just has more gravitas. Right? If I write something down or I say it and don't write it down, more people believe it when I write it down.
Or it's also just the visual confirmation of what they're hearing in the courtroom.
And so, but if you've never done that, it's an uncomfortable thing. Right. So I practice it every morning now since I went to Houston to hear Mark Lanier, 2.5 weeks ago. I road map my day. I draw a road and I drive morning and evening, and between them I put in my date, I put in what I'm going to do, I have my, my routines, and I actually practice doing it. I was explaining something to the office the other day and I'm like, you know what? Let me pull out so that's just something, learning about props and demonstratives, et cetera. Also, I spend more time now trying to figure out how I can use analogies and props to accomplish an argument or a demonstrative argument in a good way. Because candidly, more people have learned that way. More people, after 3 seconds, scroll up to the next TikTok. So they look for the wig or the football helmet or something that catches their attention. And candidly, that's kind of things that you should be working into your trials. So for example, if we have a case that's coming up for trial with a tree trimmer for Edison who did it wrong, started a fire, caught the person's house on fire, then it exploded, they lost hearing, they have whatever. So now I'm thinking about what can I do to build a prop to put that into an easily understandable focus. Maybe I bring some fronds, maybe I tie a string across but then when you're examining, it just makes more sense.
Right. It's more impactful.
It's more impactful. And then when you can get the defense expert saying, well, that string isn't too close, but the string is there and you pull the frond out and it touches the wire, that's better than 50,000 words.
Right.
But that takes intention. You got to have the intention to think about that in the stream of information that's coming at all of us.
Right.
Now add your 300 cases, your 20 trials a year. Yeah. If that's not a learned, practiced routine that you go back to, you just never get there.
Right. And so do you think part of this is attributable to what you mentioned earlier, which is the way that people are consuming information is different, and it's more of a soundbite culture. It's more of a keep scrolling if it's not, catching your attention in the first 5 seconds type society, so that as trial attorneys, in adapting to that, we have to learn how to implement some of these trial practice techniques in order to not only capture their attention, but have our arguments and our points be memorable in their minds. Is that part of this?
Absolutely. Not become the, tender lawyer where they're like, okay, I like this case or I don't like this case in one sweep, but certainly be mindful that your 3-hour withering cross that uses nothing but showing a medical record that you think is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right.
You probably lost 99% of the people, whereas maybe a 5-minute cross with, a really impactful zinger and you're out.
Right.
But that doesn't make me a good lawyer, but that's not what I was trained to do. But you know what? Get over it.
Yeah. And where do you think that desire for, self-analysis and, really being willing to be honest with yourself about, even though I want to do it this way, I understand that it's not going to be as impactful if I do it that way. Like, where does that come from for you, just in terms of really trying to push yourself to go outside your comfort zone?
Getting kicked in the nuts, and I've told you and I've talked about this, but I'm very honest that, I went through a period where, I was making plenty of money and by all intents was successful in my practice, but my personal life was a disaster, right? I was going through the divorce, et cetera, doing, unhealthy things, eating, drinking, et cetera. And it was a gift. It wasn't at the time. It was great until it was terrible, right? And then when it was terrible, it was really terrible. But through that kind of desperation, I learned, I read, I created things that started to work for me. And then I learned through reading and talking and about routines and consistency and execution. But that to keep that going, you have to own your shit.
Yeah.
And I realized
talk is cheap.
Yeah, you got to own it, right? And so when you say I should do this or I will do this or I need to do this or I'll do it on Monday, you're not owning your shit, You're saying I'm not doing it now. You're much more likely to then say, okay, I'm going to do it.
Right.
But we can say next Monday for the rest of our lives.
So obviously I understand 100% what you're talking about in terms of sometimes you got to hit rock bottom. You got to hit that desperation spot to really wake yourself up and go, hey, I need to turn this around or whatever. With that being said, you've now been sustaining this, this lifestyle and this daily dedication and this living with intention for many, many years. So what is it that helps you to continue, even though you're not necessarily right on the other side of a desperation kind of a moment?
Because I'm constantly righting the ship, knowing how quickly the ship can sink. So when I talk on my social media, right, and I say, yeah, here's another thing about focus practice. Here's another ice plunge. Here's another uncomfortable situation. Here's another statement of how we do anything is how we do everything. How small discipline and make your bed and do your cold showers. My wife, Gina, is a very disciplined, regimented person, but not nearly as much as I am, to a point where sometimes I know I'm getting on her nerve, right?
Right.
But she has understood and has seen how that regulates me. Now, does that make me autistic, OCD, crazy, overbearing? Well, who cares?
Well, you should see the other me.
Call it whatever you want.
Right.
Oh, I'm, obsessed about being. It works because through that routine process,
right,
when I start to veer off, and we all have, right? We all have our, we eat the 5 pieces of cake and, your why did I even do that?
Right.
I know how to reset because I've been doing it so much. And that's why I teach it, because I know how effective it is when I see, just like I did, very talented, wonderful people that are on an upward trajectory. And then the money and the compliments and the this and the that and the parties and the FOMO and the that. And then the next thing you know, you're doing stuff. Then it affects your sleep. Then you take this to stay up, and then you drink too much because of this. And the next thing you know, you're 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds overweight. You're depressed, and
right.
Your wife leaves you. This happens. Your kids don't like. I mean, it's just So yeah, is it sexy and exciting to be regimented and routine and whatever? No, but what does it produce? Sexy and exciting people.
Right.
You know?
And I mean, I know you many years. You're not going to be out there talking about stuff that you don't believe in.
No, I don't.
You know?
I believe in it. I live it. I do it.
Right.
Right. When I'm laying on a spiked mat at 4 a.m. because I'm not doing it to show off. I'm doing it because I'm doing it, and I want other people to do it. And
if you can inspire one person, it's.
And I know that 99 out of the 100 people that see it and go, oh, I should do that, only 1 or 2 or 3 are going to do it. But that makes I know it will make a significant difference.
And even if someone sees it and they don't do it today, maybe they'll do it next week or next month.
Why I post the same stuff
periodically
over time, because it's just got to hit the right people at the right time.
Right. All right. I want to switch gears a little bit and just get a little bit more to like the core, kind of philosophical stuff, which is what do you most love about being a trial lawyer?
It's changed over time. I used to really love the money. I used to love the win. And that was very, very important to the exclusion of other things. I've become much more, certainly the win and the money is great. And the win, though, is not a win necessarily because I won. And it's much more client-centric. But that also has come hand in hand with a real realization that, clients are people that have significant needs, not only to make for the money, but emotionally, and that this is a top 5 major event in their life that they've never been through. And so it's changed how I view a client calling me too much. Maybe they're not being a pain in the ass. Maybe they're really in trouble. Maybe they need that help. And so that's changed. So now when I'm coming up for a trial, like the one I was doing in the focus group, and I could look at that as a win, how much money am I going to make, et cetera. But now I look at it as, well, my client's now 66. I really hope we get out to trial because I need to do this. He needs this. And I've listened to what he is, and that changes the focus for the better, right? For the better. And a lot of good people have taught me that. You know?
It changes your like core intentions as the attorney on the case of like what's really driving the desire to get the result for the client. That's for sure. For you right now, where you're at in your life, what keeps the fire burning?
I love what I do. I love who I do it with. And frankly, if I didn't love it, I would do it a lot less. But, I love to teach. I love to give. So I always include that in everything that I'm doing. If I'm trying a case, I'm inviting other people to do it.
Yeah, that was like literally my next question.
I mean, I just love doing that. And, but you know me, I got remarried. I'm in a great, wonderful relationship. I have 2 new little boys. I have 2 beautiful bonus daughters to add to my 2 older kids. I have a beautiful house ranch in Louisiana that I've reconnected with my entire family there. I'm pretty good.
Fire's burning hot.
I mean, I'm pretty good.
Fire's burning hot.
You know what? What do I need to do to continue to do this? Right? Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
And all the things you talk about as being, so central to your happiness right now, don't have to do with the awards or the social events or the,
I doubt I'll ever win another award.
I don't think there's any awards left for you to win, Mike. But the point is, you're on your path, and it's cool to see.
Yeah.
Currently at the firm, you're head of the firm. Obviously, your wife Gina's a partner, and you have a few other partners. But are there unique challenges for you as the lead trial attorney balancing the business and the trial practice? And can you speak to that?
Oh, yes. You know that. I mean,
that's why I'm asking.
You and I are very similar, and I think we're very similar to probably most people out there that have done well at their skill, right? They've been a good lawyer, but now they're opening a practice and they want to become a good practice, which requires good business sense. But that also requires being a good HR person. That also requires being a good manager. That also requires knowing money. That also
marketing.
And so now we started as an entrepreneurial, technical trial lawyer, but now we have to be all these other things that we're not trained for, that we don't really like that much. Certainly not as much as trying cases. Certainly not as much as, the law. And different strokes for different folks. So it's been an exercise of reflection and humility and everything under the sun to say, okay, I need to bring people in who are better at this than I am, who like that, right? And I'm doing that. And retaining them requires you to then make decisions about your future, about partnerships, about, finances, et cetera. But it's all good. And I have subscribed to the E-Myth Revisited. I've read the books. I have an E-Myth coach I've read and communicated with a lot of different consultants and advisors about how to create systems for the best people who do the best job in that type of work to do that work.
So that seems like it's really helped you.
Oh, it's great.
And how recent is that sort of evolution for you?
Well, the E-Myth stuff's going on right now. The idea of metrics really kind of has been a 5-year phenomenon, kind of.
When you say metrics, you're talking kind of like the fireproof scoreboard stuff?
Exactly.
Okay.
And what we're talking about is, projections and measuring and grading your cases and time on desk and how soon, what's your turnover of cases,
right?
How often is a case touched, those types of things.
Yeah.
That's a whole job unto itself.
Yeah,
it can
for
be.
sure.
It can be, right?
Yeah.
And I'm here in a focus group all afternoon. Well, tell me how many cases of C value do. I'm like, hold on, I got to go. So having somebody who's got their finger on that.
Yeah.
But then you got to balance your payroll. You got to balance, nothing that none of us haven't dealt with.
Right. Got it. All right. We're going to take a pause in our conversation right now to go to our next segment, which is called Underrated, Overrated. And
You're not giving me a heads up on any of that.
I'm going to throw you a list of topics, and you're going to tell me whether they're either underrated or overrated and a brief explanation why. You ready?
Yes.
SoCal weather.
Underrated, yeah, especially when you go somewhere else.
FaceTime calls.
Extremely overrated. I don't think I've ever done one.
Ranch dressing.
It's about perfect.
Staying at the office or working late.
That's overrated. It's diminishing returns.
Taking a day away from the office even when you're busy.
That is very much underrated, and as long as you do it responsibly, will make you uber effective.
Seeing a movie at the theater.
Ooh, underrated. Beautiful.
Chat GPT.
I would say overrated, but it's really not.
Surprise birthday parties.
Underrated.
Gina, if you're watching.
Her birthday was yesterday.
Happy birthday, Gina. This probably won't be airing for a few more weeks, but belated. The snooze button.
Overrated. Disastrous. They should not have snooze buttons.
Making and eating dinner at home.
Underrated. That is priority number one.
Side hustles.
Underrated. Side hustles are money, thought process, creativity, everything.
I'm going to ask you about your side hustle in a little bit. The filmography of Leonardo DiCaprio.
Overrated. I still don't know. I've watched Titanic all the way through.
And last but not least, the Rolling Stones.
You're killing me because I've just alienated half of the people. I think they're overrated. I know that they were very important, but Mick Jagger was a celebrity, was a force. But as a singer, as a performer, phenomenal, but overrated as a singer.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. Mike Alder says the Rolling Stones are overrated. Snip out that soundbite. All right, that has been Underrated, Overrated. Very well done. All right, a few more questions. I know we got a few more minutes of your time. Really appreciate you stopping by. If you had to boil down your own recipe for obtaining professional success, what would be your bumper sticker slogan?
Consistency. Head over everything.
Consistency over everything.
Well, yes. Consistent execution. Period.
I love it. All right, and then one more on that note. If you had to advertise your strategy behind achieving personal growth and happiness in your life, what would be on your billboard?
Mostly ordinary behavior done consistently until it becomes a habit. Combined with other good habits, you become excellent.
Creates extraordinary results.
Yep, absolutely.
That's awesome. I love that. I often say to my staff, like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
Same kind of concept.
Well, the reason we know all these concepts, the reason they're familiar to us, the reason they're cliches is because they resonate and have resonated over many, 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 many years. So when you hear a statement like eat an elephant one bite at a time, and they've been saying that for 100 years, right, it's because it's relevant and it's correct to many, many people.
Right.
Right. So I say, if you recognize my cliche and you're derogatory because it's just a cliche, that's fine. But the reason that you've heard it is because it works for people over a long period of time who actually put it into place.
Right. And don't criticize it because it's a cliche. Criticize it if you disagree with it. But if it's true, it's true.
But frankly, I'm not in the business of teaching people who don't get it how to get it.
Right.
I'm there, and if they just don't want to do it, fine, move on.
Yeah, not everybody's on the same wavelength.
100%.
I want to just quickly follow up because the overrated, underrated segment, we talked briefly about side hustles. Amongst all the other things you got going on right now, Mike, do you have a side hustle?
I don't know. I've made $280 on YouTube so far.
All right.
So is that a side hustle of my videos on? I was so excited when I made my first deposit was like 57 cents really. And I was like more excited about that than really
frame the check.
But I would also say my side hustle, I really enjoy going to Louisiana, and we bought this ranch, but then we built it out. Then I've learned how to Airbnb it. Then I've learned now we've built an event space. Now we're learning that kind of event, system. And, it's helping offset the cost of the ranch, but it's fun as well. And so I've learned a lot about Airbnbs, about events, about, and then, drill down to, well, we got to buy tables, we got to buy chairs, we got to have this, you got to do this, all these different things. Very interesting for me.
And I saw recently you had like a men's retreat weekend with some attorneys out to the ranch. So that's something maybe that you're kind of working on.
Not attorneys.
Oh, not attorneys.
Many of them were, but really that was just dudes from around the country who follow me on social media. And
what was the thought process behind it? And do you see that becoming something like a recurring thing that you're going to be doing?
It is. I do it now twice a year. Gina does a women's empowerment. The ranch is wonderful because most of the guys are from not all, but most of them are from cities. So they've never mowed grass, certainly never been on a mower for 30 acres, animals, but then also really kind of high end pickleball and ping pong and just a lot of fun stuff to do. And then I mix in stuff that I know as someone who's been through a lot, and who's not afraid of things that maybe I was afraid of when I was in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about feelings. We talk about men stuff that's maybe a little taboo at the, football game.
Right.
Journaling and meditating. And I brought in a stylist who gave good style advice to guys about just generally what to wear and what not to wear, and a social media person, and a Navy SEAL who comes in to talk about, certainly, how did I kill Osama bin Laden, but also about the philosophy behind discipline. And so if that's a safe space for some guys to enjoy and do that even for the first time and not feel embarrassed or ridiculed,
right,
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's cool. And I think it speaks to who you are as a person, like just even going back, in terms of your involvement with the consumer attorneys of LA and the listserv and, managing this database of defense expert depositions and, always making your materials available to attorneys. And, you consistently throughout the time that I've known you over the last 18 plus years, you've always had involvement in mentoring other attorneys, giving back to the legal community. Why has that been so important to you and such an integral part of how you've operated all these years?
I really don't know any better. Candidly, I moved here from rural Louisiana. I just thought helping people and giving and writing notes and thank yous and was just kind of the way people did it. I mean, I grew up that way. Not that that's some magnanimous great thing. It's just it just wasn't in my vocabulary to kind of hoard it. Now that's probably my parents, obviously. They were preachers and teachers, but kind of always I've gotten a lot of pleasure out of giving and giving unconditionally. I learned that adding the word unconditional is a big deal. Now, I don't let people take advantage of me knowingly. So if I realize at some point people are taking advantage, I'll cut them off.
Right.
But otherwise, if people ask me for help, I'll help them without any expectation of return, unconditional, because I realize that if I'm looking for a return and then I don't get it, then I'm going to start pulling back on giving.
Or feeling resentful.
Or having a really bad feeling or whatever. So, I look at it and I explain it this way. I'm like, do you give money to the homeless guy on the corner? Some people do, some people don't. Well, what's the reason that most people don't? Right? Because they're good people, they're kind people, whatever.
I think the average person would say, I don't want them going and spending it on drugs or,
So I'll give you money on the condition that you use it in the way that I think is appropriate. Right? So by not giving money and preventing some people from buying booze, you've also not given money and prevented some of those people from buying food. Right. I'm willing to take that chance so that I can make sure that I'm giving to the people who are taking and buying food with it and not worrying about. Now, if somebody goes, please give me money so I can go buy booze, I'm not giving them money. Right. But I realize that condition part in helping people with depots or giving my time or inviting them to, et cetera, is also, a new lawyer, they can't really give me more work. I'm not going to help them. I'm going to help. That's just not, it's not good life. It's not good.
Yeah. And the conditional aspect of it lends itself to creating prejudgment on people.
100%.
Right? Because if you're putting a condition on them, you're assuming they're going to do A, B, or C, versus if you do it unconditionally, you're not, making really any assumptions about the person other than they've asked me for help. I genuinely believe that they need the help for whatever reason, and I'm just going to do it for the right reason. So in many
it's
ways,
also good business. I mean, my firm, I had two real mottos for a long, long time, still do in my firm. And one is to give unconditionally, ask for nothing back. You'll get back 1,000-fold. And that's true. You sow the seeds. You don't worry about if they grow or not. They will. They will. And then in victory, be humble, and defeat, be gracious. And that's they kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
And it's just, you know what? If you're watching this and you say, well, that makes you weak, that makes you less than, that means you have less money, you have less whatever, I respect your opinion. I really don't care.
Yeah.
Because that may work for you, probably not in the long run, but it certainly works for me. And in the long run, I think it works really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, really appreciate you coming in today, Mike. It's been a pleasure. Like I said, known you a long time, but got to know you a little bit better today.
I love this setup, man, and
Thank
everything.
you.
It's great.
Yeah, and hope everybody out there enjoyed our time today with Mike Alder. We'll put his information down below if you want to get a hold of him. Great guy to know, and we were happy to have you today. For everyone out there listening, this has been the WallaceWins.com podcast. We are out for today, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you.
Get your win at WallaceWins.com.